Hi everyone, this is Gene Montrestelli, and welcome once again to the Tapping Q&A podcast, where every single week we answer the most common and uncommon questions about tapping an EFT so you can eliminate self-sabotage and you can take the action that you want. If you were looking at the podcast feed, you will notice that instead of getting your regular podcast on Wednesday, there was also a podcast that showed up on Monday. That is part of the process of us going back and cleaning up the back catalog, bringing some of those old shows that were called bonus shows and turning them into regular episodes, just so that as the podcast universe continues to evolve, it's going to be easier for people to find those old shows. So if something showed up on Monday that you've heard before, that's the reason why it was in your podcast feed. If you have any questions about that, I can always be reached, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. And the process that I shared on Monday in episode 375 is one of my favorite tools that I use once a week to really help us stay grounded. And when we're grounded, we take better, more effective action. This is Gene Montrestelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 376, originally aired August 7th, 2019. Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're listening to this. Thanks for spending some time with me. Today, we're going to spend some time talking about and tapping on the way we believe other people perceive us and how that impacts the action that we're going to take. Before we do that, just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, you can download our free 10-part guide for using tapping an EFT to eliminate self-sabotage. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com, click on the big blue button, and you will start getting that guide. If you happen to be listening to this in the website, all you need to do is slide up in that right-hand column. You'll see a big blue button at the top there, which will make it easier for you to listen to the podcast. A number of weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast called The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Bomani works for ESPN, and he is a really thoughtful, interesting man where he talks about the intersection of sports and culture and race and all of these things where it's more than just what happens on the field, but it's part of the human experience. And recently had on a show as a guest, Taylor Rooks. Taylor is someone who is very, very new in her career. And over the course of the last 2.5 years, she's gone from doing television in a very regional way to all of a sudden being on this national platform. And so her and Bomani were kind of debriefing the experience of working really hard at something that you like and working in the exact same way, but how people are noticing you becomes very, very different. Therefore, the amount of feedback that you get from people that you know and don't know continues to grow as you go from a regional television personality to a national television personality. And over the course of the conversation, Bomani was talking about how these things from the outside can impact you. And he shared a quote, "I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am." I'm going to say that again because that's pretty complicated. I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. So basically what that is saying is we act and respond to the world based on our perceived definition that others have of us. And that is a really difficult place to be working from because first of all, it's not accurate to how we experience it. And second, it might not even be accurate to the way that others experience us. But instead, we're operating from this place of what we imagine other people think of us, which all of a sudden creates this sense of motivation and identity that is 2, maybe even 3 steps away from what we really are and how we are experiencing the world. And you can see when that happens, if we're trying to live up to some made-up standard in our mind that we think belongs to someone else, then we're not going to be taking clear, authentic, direct choices towards moving ourselves forward. And as we continue on the podcast to try and tap and work towards being able to eliminate self-sabotage and take the actions that we want, if I'm working from a place of trying to be who I want to be, and I am trying to accommodate what I think you think I am, there's going to be a lot of conflict inside of that, which is either going to get us taking action at cross purposes, where I'm moving one direction and another direction, where I'm moving one direction and then another direction in the exact same step, or because I'm so confused and so conflicted internally, I don't take any steps at all. And so it creates a sense of paralysis around the action, produces either inconsistent action or it produces no action at all. Now, it makes sense that when we have these beliefs and we give them value, that they have so much weight. And this is something that we talk about a lot on the podcast. But it's really, really true, and it comes up so much in my client sections, is part of the reason why I harp on it so much here. There's a very, very primitive need for us to belong. And that primitive need exists from the place of not wanting to die. And that, again, might sound a little dramatic, but 7,000 years ago, when we were nomadic people living in small tribes, if we were pushed outside of the tribe, we would probably die, because the world was a place that we had much less control over, just because technologically 7,000 years ago, we were in a radically different place. And so as we wandered from place to place, the way that we found food, the way that we found safety, the way that we were able to navigate the weather was because of the collective wisdom and the collective strength of the group. And so today, even though we're not in that circumstance, that more than likely you are probably not going to freeze to death because you have been disassociated from your friends, and more than likely you're not going to be eaten by a giant furry thing with huge claws and huge teeth because the tribe has pushed you aside. But that sense of rejection and unbelonging triggers that very, very primitive response. And so if we are trying to stay safe and we're trying to stay connected, then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to accommodate those around us. And part of the ways that on subconscious levels, we accommodate the people around us or what they want is by living up to the standards that they have for us. And so today, I just want to walk you through a quick process that is going to help you to kind of assess when we are responding from this place of other people's beliefs about us that we have created in our own mind. And then second, we're going to do some tapping after doing this process. So it'll help you to clear that resistance so you can be more authentically yourself inside of your own skin. So the process happens in 5 steps. And when I'm doing a process like this, I like to do it with a pen and paper in hand and being able to take notes, because we are not going to be able to hold all of the information inside of our head as we navigate this. And so by writing things down, it gives us the ability to completely give ourselves over to the process. And so the way I do a process like this is, like I said, 5 steps. So number 1, I list the people who I regularly interact with. Typically, the types of people that we are going to be doing for this particular activity are going to be our family and our close friends, and then the people we regularly interact with professionally. Now, these could be colleagues, these could be clients, these could be people that were on a board at a nonprofit or a group at the church. And so I'm going to put the word professional in quotes because it's just interactions where we're trying to accomplish something together. And I make a list of these people. And for me, I usually skip 2 or 3 lines after each name, just so I have some space to make some notes as I do this. So the second thing that I do after I've named these people, again, we're working from the way that we believe people perceive us, is we write down, what do we think they think of us? What do we think they define us as? And again, this is conjecture, but what's really important is to recognize the fact that what we think they think of us is the place that we are responding from emotionally. And so it's important that we have a clear sense of what is impacting the way that we move. So at this step, it doesn't even matter if what they believe is what we think they believe, because what they believe is immaterial. What is material is what we think they think. Number 3, after we have defined what we think they think of us, then we're just going to make a list of how that makes us feel. Are we excited by that definition? Are we worried by that definition? Is it a burden that they think of us this way? Is it an inconvenience that they think of us this way? Is there a sense of rebellion inside of us because we know that that's not true what they think of us? But we're going to write a list of those emotions. And it could be anger, frustration, overwhelm, or it could be more complicated sentences. I feel really angry because I feel like I'm being dismissed by them. I'm really frustrated that they don't take me seriously. So the detail that we have makes it easier for us to tap. Number 4 is to then ask ourselves the question, and we're going to do this at distance, we're going to be guessing, how does this make us act? And in this case, we're responding to both part 2 and part 3. So how do I act because I think they think this about me? And how do I act because of the emotions that are created because what I think they think about me? And then question number 5 is, what is my true self in comparison to all of this? And so it gives us the opportunity to go, okay, this is what they think. This is how I'm responding. What's my true self? Who do I really want to be in response to that? And so now after you've done that, you have this huge amount of data that gives you the ability to start tapping. And you can tap on an image of who you want to be seen as. You can tap on the emotion that you feel because of what you think they think of you. Or you could tap on the actions that you are taking or aren't taking because of it. But what we've done is through these questions, number 1, naming the person, number 2 through 5, giving us some context and how that's impacting us, it gives us all of these entry points to go in and tap on using whatever tool, whatever process makes the most sense to us. Now, in a moment, we're going to do some general tapping on all of this, so don't feel like I'm leaving you alone in this to figure out how to tap on your own. But what will happen is, as you use any of those 4 entry points, you're going to start to dismantle the story that you made up in your head about what you think they think of you. And in dismantling it, you're either going to change the definition of it, so it's more in line with who you are, or you might not change the definition of it, but you're going to be able to take the power out of it, where you're able to care less on a subconscious level about what they think of you or what you think they think of you. So you're going to start making more consistent action. Because at the beginning, we talked about this idea of either when I'm dealing with this definition that if I go against it, it's unsafe, I'm either making inconsistent action in different directions or I'm not taking any action at all. So what you'll do is you will find, as you work through a process like this, is not only in the context of this relationship, but in lots of places in your life, you're going to start taking action that is much more congruent and much more authentic with yourself. So again, list the people who you interact with, then one at a time, what do you think they think about you? Number 3, how does what you think they think about you make you feel? Number 4, how does what you think they think about you make you act? And number 5, how true and accurate is any of this? And how do you feel about that? And so that's going to give you a bunch of entryways into tapping. So in a general way, when we're just kind of addressing this outside the context of an individual relationship, there are some ideas that are really good for us to tap on. And we're going to do that right now. So tap on the side of the hand, take a nice big deep breath for me. And just move from tapping point to tapping point. I know that other people have impressions of me. They have beliefs about who I am. They have beliefs about what I am capable of. And they have beliefs about how I act. I also have an impression of what I think other people think about me. based on who I am, based on my experience, based on our past interactions. I have written a story inside of my head about how they navigate the world. I have written a story inside of my head about what they think about me. And it is possible that this story I have written about what they think about me has nothing to do with what they actually think about me. But I am in a situation where I respond to what I think they think. Because for me, what I think they think is my operative reality. My emotional response comes from this. The action I take is informed by this. This means my actions and emotions are impacted by a story that I have written inside of my head about what I am guessing they think about me. And it doesn't matter if this is what is really going on, because I am emotionally responding to this story that I have written. I give myself permission to let go of these stories. I give myself permission to know I don't have to respond in this way. I give myself permission to define myself in my own terms. I give myself permission to choose who I am. Not what other people think I am. Not what I think other people think I am. But who I am. It is safe for me to be authentically me. It is safe for me to be my true self. It is safe for me to make choices and actions based on who I am. Knowing that it does not matter what I think others think about me. The reality is most people aren't thinking about me at all. They are so wrapped up and inside of their own experience, they are completely missing me. I am not crossing their mind. Since I am not crossing their mind, it doesn't matter what they think about me. It doesn't matter what I think they think about me. All that matters is me being me. And it is safe for me to be me. Nice deep breath. Not only is this tapping something that I think is good and useful for you to do, I would also, if you're going to sit down and go through those 5 steps of the process that I taught before the tapping, I would do this tapping before you did that. Because what it's going to give you the ability to do as you're answering those questions is to be able to answer them more clearly, because you're not even worried about writing these things down. Because sometimes we're so worried about what other people think about us that we don't even want to give it an opportunity to evaluate it, because it feels unsafe, because we're uncovering ideas about us that we don't like. Even if they're not true, just the fact that someone might think them is hard. So give that a go. I would really love to hear your experience on this, because when we get ourselves into a place where we're moving from our authentic selves and not our beliefs about other people's perceptions of us, obviously we're going to take more action. Obviously we're going to take more authentic action, and we're going to move forward in a way that makes more sense for us, eliminating that self-sabotage and really taking action. Let me know how this works for you. If you know someone in your life who you see could use a tool like this, please share it with them. Imagine, the goal this year is to get 9 new people a week tapping as a community. And if we do that, 3,000 new tappers will be out there. And imagine what it would be like if 3,000 people, in addition to yourself, were in a circumstance where they were no longer working from the misperceptions that we have about how other people see us, but they were moving from their authentic self. They would be making more action. They would be making better action, which means their life is going to be better, which means their life is going to be healthier, which means every single person they touch's life is going to be healthier. And it just gives us this rippling effect moving outward, where we have the opportunity to just make the world a happier, healthier, transformed place. If you have a question or a comment, I can always be reached, Gene, Gene, at tappingqna.com. If you go to tappingqna.com, you can always click on that contact link. The entire archive of the podcast can be found at tappingpodcast.com, with instructions on how you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Pandora, Alexa, and every other podcatcher that exists out there. Tappingpodcast.com. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.